And we're back with another one of these bizarre lists that have become a thing. And who knew that would ever happen? But thank you very much for joining me again. My name is Simon Miller. If you're new to my YouTube channel or you're not a subscribe fiend, please do hit the subscribe button. It means a lot to me and makes me feel good inside. Also, there's other lists like this, 10 things and all that, and you can learn a bunch of just crap about me, but hopefully you find it entertaining because that's the idea. Like the video, share the video, you know the deal. I'm on Patreon at patreon.com/Simon316. There's a link in the bio below if you want to check it out. It's like a Sainsbury's on there, a shop, or a Walmart. You give me something, and I will give you something back. Other than that, I'm a wrestler too, if you care. SimonMiller.BigCartel.com. That's where you can buy wrestling merchandise. Also, just to point out, and I know you roll your eyes when people say this, I get it. I roll my eyes too, but I don't actually have any regrets, and really nobody should have any regrets, because, you know, you make a mistake, and you learn from it, and you become a better person, but even still, I grab 10 basically dumb things that I've done in my life that I do look back and go, ugh. Here's 10 things I really regret. Number 10 is, I don't even know where to start with this. Well, we've got to go to the past, right? And I'm talking way back in the past. I would have been around 16 years old. I can't remember what version of school that is. You got like lower school, middle school, upper school. I think it was middle school. And there was this thing, you probably couldn't get away with it today. Maybe you could. I think most schools did it, or at least they did back then. Like I'm from 1942. Definitely didn't happen in 1942. Well, more important things in 1942 was a war going on. But to raise money for charity and good causes, somebody came up with this idea that we should bid on people. I don't even know what that means. I think about it now. What do you mean bid on people? People get up on a stage and it'd be like an auction. So I'll give £1, £2, because no one's got any money when they're 16. You're fucking doing paper rounds and stuff. I mean, how this didn't just break up new relationships. Like, 16 is when you start getting into quote-unquote proper relationships and stuff. So how this didn't just alienate that when someone else who fancied somebody else's boyfriend or girlfriend went, oh, I'll take him. I don't know. I'm level with you now. The person that bought me was my girlfriend at the time. That's not what I care about. So you got paraded out on this stage. And everyone was making noise and, like I say, putting their placards up in the air. It wasn't my idea. I won't say any names. It's not fair. But I even remember the name of the person hosting it. And it was fine. Like, it wasn't great. It wasn't bad. It was just one of those things. And he said, if we get to whatever the figure was, I will get Simon to take his top off. Now, at 16 years old, I'd only just started going to the gym, but at that age, you do anything out of the ordinary, and everyone was like, oh, that's weird, and it becomes your affectation. So I became the gym guy, even though I just like a fat kid. For whatever reason, he said, I guess ego came into play, right? Ego came into play, and I thought, oh man, that would be good. So as soon as it got to the level, I could have just gone, no, I'm not doing that, because I'm not an asshole, but instead, it got to the relevant number. I took my top off. I did a Shawn Michaels flex pose. You even know what that is or you're not. I'll try and put it on screen. And even when I look back now, I think I really would have rather have not done that. I mean, even if I had been a big jacked up 4% body fat at 16, I've been doing really well, I would still have regretted it. But the fact that I was just a chubby kid doing it to try and win over some plebs, not plebs, they're my friends, I like them. That's a bad memory. Number 9 goes even further back. We go to like lower school. I was like 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that region. And I was doing my first school play. So that was exciting. We were going to do it in the gymnasium. All the parents are going to come. Quick note about that. I don't remember what the play was. But I remember at one point we were on a boat. Maybe it was about Columbus finding America. But it was a musical too. And one of the songs went, and I'm not joking you, it went ship, S-H-I-P, biscuits, ship biscuits, we only eat ship biscuits. Somehow I remember the tune, but when you sing it and you've got a bunch of kids doing it, it goes, ship biscuits, we only eat ship biscuits. And you could see parents' face, like, why are they saying shit biscuits? Genuinely hilarious. Anyway, my big bit was I had to stand up on some chair and I was like recruiting salespeople, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, to come on my boat. Salespeople sound like I was trying to get a bunch of estate agents. I was trying to get, you know, I can't think of the word, sailors, geez brain. I was trying to get, I regret that, trying to get a bunch of sailors onto the boat, and when I went to get off the chair, it was like one that had, you know, like 2 arms on it. I caught my leg on the armrest, boom, just face planted right on the floor. Number 8, we then move forward in my life. This would have been around about, 2008? So that's 11 years ago. Well, thanks. Thanks, brain. That's 2 now. Make me look like an idiot. But I was living down in Bournemouth. I had a job. I was working for video game magazines at the time. And I used to, this is when I was experimenting with kind of how I could get away with not eating food quicker, but if I was out and about, Like, what can I blend up? I bought a blender. What can I blend up so that if I need protein and carbs quickly, what can I do? So I used to throw things into a blender like oats and protein, and sometimes I would blend cottage cheese with protein, which is actually quite nice if you have the stomach for it. And I would point out that I was blending oats and protein together long before you could just go into a shop and buy it. That's neither here nor there. And for some reason, I decided I had to go outside to my car to get something. And in my infinite wisdom, I left the blender going. I thought it would be nice and blendy. So I just run to my car and get this thing. But like an idiot, I didn't take my keys and the door closed. So I locked myself out my flat, which wouldn't have been a big deal. I mean, it would have sucked. But the fact this blender was going, I was like, eventually that thing could spark. If a blender keeps going for ages, you'd imagine something bad could happen. So I got into this mass panic. I was like, why are you so stupid to begin with? So I thought, okay, well, I'll get some stones and I'll throw it at a window of one of my neighbours, thinking, you know, they'll come and let me in. But I didn't really know anybody in that building. So I guessed the window of somebody that I did know, got it completely wrong, and this Asian couple just pulled their blinds and looked at me like I was absolutely crazy, as you would do. And they were just like, what are you doing? And then I had to try and explain to them, because they didn't really speak very... The English wasn't great. So from a window, they were about 3 stories up, I was trying to explain to them what I wanted to do. It just sounded like I wanted to break in. Thankfully, I just hung by the front door of my block of flats, and somebody eventually came out and I snuck in. And the blender had started to smell like badness, but nothing burnt down. I just felt like an absolute pleb. Number 7 goes back to a video that kind of didn't kick off this vlog series, but it was one of those videos I did on surprise. Oh, that did much better than I was expecting, and it ties into the fact that I don't drink. And this is the reason I don't drink. I'm sure we talked about it then, but hey, again, I don't necessarily regret it overall, because it allowed me to find a piece of myself that wasn't for me, but, you know, it still wasn't great. So the only time I got properly drunk was on the eve of my 18th birthday. So I went out with my friends to celebrate said 18th birthday, and I got horrendously drunk to the point all I did the next day was hang over my friend's toilet who I'd stayed the night over, and I just threw up, and his brother found that hilarious. And if you haven't seen that video, I as everyone does, I said I'm never drinking again, but I meant it, which kind of sums up how my mind works. I don't know, that's just what I do. If I think something, I just go with it. But I just look back now, the amount of stuff I did. I mean, I was drinking beer like it was water. I ate a pack of Wotsits, but they weren't normal Wotsits. They had some special edition Wotsits. To this day, if I see a Wotsit, I'm like, oh man, the smell. I remember I was just awful. I was just awful. Like, my behavior that night was not becoming of a member of the human race. So when I do think back about that, I think that's more of an ashamed than a regret, because you always want to act socially responsible. And I guarantee you on that night, I was not acting socially responsible. However, going back to what we said at the start of the video and not regretting these things, if I hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have found, again, a side of me that I didn't know that was there. And while that side of me was very difficult for a while, because I was very intimidated by telling people I didn't drink, it really did contribute to the person I am now. Who would have thought that? Number 6 is the first time I swore at my dad. I would have been around 15 years old. I was at the top of the stairs. He was at the bottom. I was doing some asshole kid thing. And I went, fuck you, Dad. And as soon as I saw his face, I thought to myself, I regret that. You can keep that one on this list. I learned nothing from that. Well, I learned not to swear at my dad. He was so mad, as he should have been. Number 5 goes back to, let's try and date it, because I think I can make it more fun. It would have been Christmas 2017? It must have been. So, if you don't know, I used to work for Sky. I used to do their video game reviews on a show called Swipe. Unfortunately, Swipe got stopped, which meant that was the end of that. I used to love doing it. But the way it worked is, it was pretty it's a pretty cool gig. Sky had like a car service. So they would send a car to your door, and you were like swanky, like, oh, look at me. But before I went to one of these over the Christmas period, it's like December the 12th, 13th, 14th, around that time, I'd eaten sweet potato, as I always do. But when I was eating the sweet potato, I remember going, does something taste off about this sweet potato? To be fair, I was eating sweet potato and chicken, so it could have been the chicken. That would make more sense. But the chicken didn't taste weird. The sweet potato did. So I went on my way, and I felt a bit off, a bit sick. I was like, I'm sure it's nothing. I'll go home, I'll drink some water, and we'll move on from there. Absolute mistake. For the next 2.5 weeks, I was bedridden. Like, that night, I was up shaking, I was shivering, I had to go to the toilet a lot. We don't need to get into that, you can imagine. And if you're thinking which end, just have fun with it, baby. And it was honestly one of the worst illnesses I've ever had in my life. Somebody had to come and check on me because I was too weak to go anywhere to get checked on. So as you can imagine, when I look back, I'm like, I really regret I really regret eating that food. And it wiped out my Christmas too. It wiped out my Christmas. My family often go to Norwich. That's where a lot of us are from, or my family is from. And I just couldn't go. I mean, I couldn't get out of bed for 2.5 weeks. I was absolutely ruined. And it wasn't really until like the first week of January, the first week of the year, where I felt up to doing anything. It wasn't real weight. It was water weight and the fact that I couldn't eat anything. But I lost over a stone in that short amount of time. I mean, if you watch videos, I kept doing, I did as many videos as I could, but if you go back and watch them, you'll notice. And it came back on very quickly, because as soon as you start giving those nutrients you've lost, your body knows what to do. But that was one of the worst illnesses I've ever had. At one point, I thought I was going to die, which I know is hyperbole, but I did. I was like, I'm going to die. I felt that bad, and I was shaking, I was shivering. I never have baths, right? I'm a shower man. I was in a bath, and the bath was probably 100 degrees. And while it was like hurting my skin, I'm exaggerating, I just couldn't get warm. I couldn't get warm. Shouldn't have eaten it. Number 4 is nice and simple. I went to see The Matrix Reloaded after seeing The Matrix, and it's only one of 2 films I've ever walked out of. I walked out of The Matrix Reloaded, so I've never seen Revelations, whatever the next one is, and I walked out of Charlie's Angels 2 Full Throttle. I didn't want to see that one. My girlfriend at the time made me, but I left. And I went and sat in the foyer and I played Game Boy Advance. Number 3, again, goes back to 2008 when I was in the gym having a good old time. And I said to myself, I'm going to do behind the neck shoulder presses. Never do any kind of lifting behind your neck. It's not worth it. I know the comments now going, yeah, you're wrong. Because the fitness community is actually the worst community of all when you get those people. But I did. I was in a gym. I was doing that behind the neck. My shoulder crunched. It was so loud, the entire gym looked at me. And I was like, yeah, that was me, because I was an idiot and assumed I'd just tweaked it. I carried on training. As it turned out, I had torn my rotator cuff. I always get this. The one that most people tear is their subscapularis. No. People, they tear their supraspinatus. I had torn my subscapularis, and that's like a rare one, or at least it was back then. That's what my doctor told me. And I had to have keyhole surgery. I couldn't lift weight for 2 years, because that's how long it took for the NHS to get round to it. That's not a slight on the NHS, I understand. But yeah, 2 years out of not lifting weights and losing all that weight, I regret it. Number 2, we go back to super young school. And I guess it must have affected me on some level, because how the hell do I remember this? But I could tell you the names. I remember their names, but I won't, because I don't think it's fair. I don't know these people anymore. They may not appreciate me saying their names. But I was in a form class. I don't know if Americans have that if you're American. Basically, the class you have to go into first thing in the day, and then you go back in after lunch so that your form teacher can make sure you're not running amok. And the guy who I was next to asked me if I'd seen a story in the newspaper. And because back then, I've talked about this in other videos too, I was bullied, and he was kind of a cool kid. I just wanted to win favour. So I was like, oh yeah, I know that story, and made some crap up in my head. And he just looked at me, and he was like, well, you didn't, because I just made that up. And don't get me wrong, the story was clearly not real, but again, I just wanted to be accepted. It's a very silly thing to do, a very immature thing to do, but hey, I was an immature child. And it was a defense mechanism, right? I felt so embarrassed, and I felt like I'd put my foot in it so much. I thought I'll double down on this. So I was like, no, it is real. I read it in like the Times or something. It's like, no, you're making this up. And it got quite heated because of me. I was being a dick. But it got so over the top, no word of a lie, it ended with us scuffling, and I gave him a DDT on the floor. Had to go and see the headmaster, or the deputy head, I think. Mr. Fairs was his name. And he got it. He understood. I think he knew I was in quite a difficult position. I remember, actually, side note, Mr. Fairs once talked to my mum and said, look, Simon needs to come and talk to us. We think there's something going on, bullying, etc. But because I wasn't making it known, there was only so much they could do. E.g., they sit in a hallway, they say break it up, but they wanted more information. Number 1 is the cheesy one, because some people say they like it when all the nonsense ties into something that's a bit more in-depth, I suppose. And I don't regret this at all, because, like I've said, it's all about the journey and the destination and how you learn from it and all of that. But if I was going to look back throughout my 20s especially, as a man in his early 30s now, it took me a long time to believe in myself is not necessarily the right term, but have that self-confidence, have that self-worth. I mean, that's really hard to develop anyway. But I mean, we'll tie into the drinking thing. Honestly, throughout my 20s, or at least early to mid-20s, I was so scared about telling anybody I didn't drink. But that's because there was a massive stigma. I hadn't made this up in my head. When I had told people, they'd reacted as if I'd slapped their mum. They're like, I can't hang out with you. So it builds up, you develop things in your brain. So I needed to go through all of that to get to this point. Because now if someone came up to me and I said I don't drink and they gave me grief, I'd be like, bro, you need to get a real problem. And I just walk off. I wouldn't even let it faze me because I know it's not something that I want to do. And I'm confident with it. I know I'm better off without it in my own life. I don't hold anything against anybody that wants to have a drink. Go absolutely smash it. I've just chosen not to. When you do look back, and again, this sounds like a bigger deal than it was because it wasn't a big deal, but you do kind of think just a little bit, if I had all of that in my 20s, who knows what else I could have achieved, or who knows what else I could have done. But to get to this point, you had to go through all that madness anyway, and I'm a better person for it. Again, I learned, I evolved, and I understood who I am. I felt comfortable in my own skin. That's a way to put it. It took me a long time to feel comfortable in my own skin. But as I've said on other videos, I think it takes everybody a long time to feel comfortable in their own skin. And even when you do, you're still going to have days when you don't. Because that's human race. Nobody wakes up and is in a good mood or is 100% on top of things all the time. Some days you wake up, you look in the mirror and you're like, what is that grotesque thing looking back at me? Because that's just who we are. But there you go. There's 10 things I regret. Absolute nonsense as always, but that's what these vlogs are all about. Again, please subscribe to the channel, like, share, leave a comment below. Let me know some of the things you regret. Call me a bald asshole. I get it. Patreon.com/SimonMiller316. Link in the description below. SimonMiller.BigCartel.com, and go watch some other of my videos. There's a whole bunch of these 10 things now. I should make it into a playlist, really. They're just in the vlog playlist. Although, check out the vlog playlist. I'm quite proud of the vlog playlist. If you just want to have a chat about mental health and positivity and negativity and everything in between, you can. But in the meantime, Twitter, Instagram, @SimonMiller316, and I'll see you soon.